Right, thank you. Good evening. How are you guys doing this evening? That doesn't sound like good at all. That was the most dead good. That was zombies coming out of the coffins and saying good. Can we do this a little louder? How are you guys doing this evening? Good. Thank you. Right, so let's just get this rolling. I usually do this as a 4-hour session, which doesn't even include expert views on Facebook ad optimization and advertising in general. I've tried to comprise, just really make that concise to about 40 minutes. I'm going to see how that goes because my slide deck is still 80 slides long. But I'm not going to take your time. I'm going to breeze through this as quickly as possible. So if you do have any points, please make sure you note them down and we'll discuss that during the Q&A session. Right, so the back rows, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, good.
I'm Preetham Venkky. I'm the digital strategist and the business head for KRDS here in Asia. We've been in Singapore for the past few months now. Actually, it's been close to half a year now. And we're doing tremendously well in the region. And a huge part of what KRDS does is that from 2010, we've been part of Facebook PMD program, which is the Preferred Marketing Developer Program. At that point in time, it was 25 agencies. Now it's more than 200 agencies. They prefer to work with select agencies who seem to understand the platform. And that's partially where some of the slides would come from, the kind of expertise that Facebook themselves extend to us. So let's just quickly start. I want to do a couple of fundamentals and try to understand Facebook only so we can set the context right. Anybody, what's the mission of Facebook? Very quickly. Anyone? I'll throw a beer at you.
Make money to be a better business.
Yeah, I was waiting for the second part of the answer. Right, so Facebook's mission is really simple. It's to give people a platform through which they can share, make the whole world open and connected. Really simple. Share, open, connected, 3 prime words that you need to keep in mind. Just a quick overview of Facebook advertising as it stands. I think on an average when it comes to worldwide access, it's about 6 hours, 35 minutes every month that people spend on Facebook. That's twice as much of what they would do on Google. But what's interesting, and this is coming up even more, is because, at least from an advertising point of view, is that there are 600 million monthly active users on Facebook on mobile. Actually, the numbers are very interesting. You'd be interested to know that 90% of US smartphone users access Facebook every day. That's a huge number. When it comes to targeting, of course, if you were to look at all the different kinds of advertising mediums that you've got, the targeting is obviously not accurate. Google does not know who you are, doesn't understand your likes, doesn't even know your age in a lot of cases. Whereas in the case of Facebook, they have that much more in-depth and comes to profiling of the user itself. Google's advertising strategy is content-oriented. That means you will see a lot of advertising around content. Facebook's advertising strategy is very simple. It's user-based and user-oriented. Now, when it comes to at least engagement, you would see at least 3,200,000,000. This could be all the activities that people tend to do on Facebook. This is important because this can then lead to amplification. Anything that a user ever does on Facebook, this could be liking a story, could be commenting on it, could be sharing on it. This is something that brands can utilize and amplify that for the rest of the users on Facebook to actually get to know about the story itself. And of course, when it comes to influence, I think you'll agree with me, there's tremendous amounts of influence that you've got when you use Facebook as a platform, especially because of the social context itself. Paradigms, and this is something I'd like to discuss broadly from a social media point of view, because I think it's important to understand. So this is something that you've studied in your MBA books all the time, Adam Maslow, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Could somebody tell me what those top 3 needs are called? Anyone? So it's Maslow's hierarchy of social needs, essentially, right? And anything that you would do online, especially on Facebook, I think the whole progression has been across Maslow's hierarchy of social needs. So if you were to look at Facebook in the beginning, you joined Facebook because your friends were there, and this brings in a sense of belonging to start with. Then what is the first post that you post on Facebook is something that you want to show off, right? I bought this big car, I went on a holiday, this is self-esteem and amplifying that message itself. And 3, of course, self-actualization. And a lot of people ask me, how do you think Facebook can actually deliver on self-actualization? Well, they brought in timeline, which means you can know what you ate 4 years back, and then that can probably bring in some insight for you. There's something which has changed from a business context and a business point of view, right? So this is standard marketing advertising terminology, as you would call it. Anytime you were to buy ads, this is what you would aim at. You're hoping to build awareness for your product, your brand, the message as much as possible, so you buy more and more and more ads. Hopefully a small section of those people who are aware about your product and its benefits and USPs and so on and so forth would then consider buying your product, and a smaller segment of them would actually purchase it. But there's something else which is interesting, which has completely changed the entire model, because there's a funnel the other way as well, which means people will now get to use it, God forbid, oh my God, if my product is bad, and then they would actually form an opinion, and then they would start talking about it, which is where in the consideration set, there's more and more chatter which is user-generated, and the conversation on behalf of the brand has completely vacated. Look at how you now buy cars versus how you bought cars 10 years back, and you would know what I mean. But I think the bigger sentence I want to actually make as a quote is that users are now experiencing brands, products, and services before actually experiencing them. You would notice this if you've ever tried to book a hotel. The first thing that you go to is TripAdvisor. You've made up your opinion about bad hotels even without stepping in. So this is going to happen increasingly as we see with a more connected world. This is actually true. It's not even a joke, right? When most social media strategists actually get onto the board, this is what they want to do. This is what the marketing manager really wants. He either wants a like grab, or he wants to broadcast, which is still build awareness and then amplify the message, or he wants to promote, which is sale, 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 off, offers, and of course, hopefully make sure that something goes viral. And very rarely do you come across where, how can we actually help you be awesome? The thing about brands, and I'm seeing a lot of top Fortune 500 brands actually turning the curve all the way around, is making the entire brand to be a platform. Now just think about this. The brand has now become the platform. A platform from where users can now talk, or users can then amplify the message itself. So it's not about the brand's message anymore, it's actually more about the user's message. And the more and more brands start thinking of themselves as platforms, the more tremendous amounts of success that they will see on social. All right, now let's get on to advertising and the point framework. But please understand, when it comes to advertising on social, it could be Facebook, it could be Twitter, it could be any other platform that you use, it's never to be done in a silo. It has to be a more integrated approach, which is why I'm discussing the POEM framework. What does POEM stand for? It's paid, owned, and earned media. It's really simple. So when it comes to owned, this is typically nothing but your Facebook page, your Google Plus page, could be a website, could be a Twitter account, your YouTube channel, and all of that. This is avenues on the platforms where you control the content as a brand, as a user, whatever, right? This is owned media. Obviously, you have your say here. Earned media is largely user interaction and amplification on behalf of the user. That means whenever a user talks about you, that's the earned media points that you get. In the case of Facebook and a lot of other cases, you see applications and you see interactions and engagements becoming a very important aspect of earned media. Of course, paid advertising can also drive the same thing for you. And finally, paid media. This is practically a list of everything that you could do, broadly speaking. You had pop-up ads in the beginning. Now you have mobile ads, contextual ads in the case of Google, video ads, those really pesky, annoying things which come up whenever you want to watch something interesting on YouTube. Of course, roadblocks which take over the page, and so on and so forth. But the biggest context that's paved way when it comes to Facebook is obviously the social context of the ad itself. So any content, okay, anyone, why do you go to Facebook if you're not creating content? Anyone? Why do you go to Facebook if you're not posting anything? Why do you go to Facebook like 10 times a day?
Stop people.
Sorry? Stalk people? You sure? Do we have a government authority representative here somewhere? How many people log on to Facebook to stalk people? Right, 1, 2. Thank God, the number is less. All right, so I think largely it's obviously to stay connected with your social circle, right? That's primary. If brands want to have a part of this conversation, especially on the newsfeed, and that's where you spend more and more time, it's important for you to remember that whenever brands want to have a conversation within the newsfeed, they need to have social context. Otherwise, most brand messaging will be extremely poor in terms of response. People will tend to mark it as spam, people will tend to turn it off. But if you suddenly notice that this is a friend of yours who likes BMW, now there is social context. This is the entire basis on which newsfeed advertising on Facebook actually, the premise resides on. Now let's look at Facebook. Facebook continues to be the largest provider of all display advertising worldwide. There's a reason why. That's because 1 out of 5 page views worldwide is actually on Facebook. Think about it. I mean, it's true. It's twice the amount of time that you spend as opposed to Google, as I've shown you before. That means twice the amount of page views. It's large in its own terms, which means that much more space for Facebook to show you advertising. But obviously, Facebook does it in a way more elegant way than we would have imagined. All right, so basics of advertising. How many of you have seen this funnel before? So when I started off, I realized that there could be a mix of people who are just starting up trying to understand, just online advertising, Facebook context of online advertising, and also a mix of people who have some expertise who have already used the platform and then advertised on it. So how many of you are familiar with this funnel? Do I need to go into it? Unanimous? So at a core level, when it comes to online advertising, there's something called impressions. So you can pay for impressions. That means if 1,000 times the ad gets delivered, it doesn't matter how many people are seeing it because it's not unique users. It's largely page views and views of the ad itself. That's called impressions, and you can pay for it. You do this especially when you want awareness built for your brand. That means there's no call to action, there's no conversion, but then you're essentially looking at just awareness. That means you want the brand logo out there, you want the brand product to be shown out there. This is a good way to go after buying impressions. But of course, we're not satisfied with just impressions. We want to see where that leads because digital is a very measurable medium. So let's see how many of those people click on the ad, and let's see how many of those convert and how many of them buy a product or do something that I want them to do. This is where clicks come in, right? What I want you to do is quickly, from just a crowdsourced medium, tell me what is conversion from a traditional advertising or traditional media point of view stand. Now let's say you were to look at a print ad. How do you think you would measure a print ad outside of readership and circulation? What are the metrics that you think as marketers you would want to use? Anyone? Sorry? So one thing you could do is obviously put a phone number and see how many people are going to call back. You would give them SMS details, try and see how many people convert, wait for SMSs from their end. Or you could just, do a couponing ad where you take the coupon, walk into the store, and then see how many people have redeemed the coupon and so on and so forth. So these are the ways in which you can measure conversion. When it comes to online, there are multiple ways to do it, right? Any action that a person takes on top of a visual that he sees can be considered as conversion. What's extremely important for you when you start your Facebook advertising campaign, always, always, always remember, please establish the objective. Especially if there is anything outside of awareness objective, then please establish conversion objectives. This is very important. You want to see how many people use the app, you want to see how many people installed, you want to see how many people visited your website, how many people filled in the lead generation form. It could even drive all the way up to, with Facebook offers, of course, it could drive all the way up to, footfall in your store because people take a printout of the offers and then go ahead and exchange it and experience the store experience itself. So always, always, always measure conversions towards the end of it. I'm going to quickly take you through the ad formats. Pardon me if I've missed something. It's just, Facebook continues to expand. Of course, they're trying to now, merge everything and bring in only about 6 or 7 ad formats. It's still in the process, and you will start seeing that being rolled out very shortly. But as it stands, this is extremely simple when it comes to ad formats. There are sponsored results for those of you who would have seen whenever you search something on Facebook. How many of you use seriously, I want to know this from a research point of view. How many of you use the Facebook search now? How many of you have graph search? Okay, that's a sizable number. Those of you who don't have graph search, how many of you use search? Yeah, so it's a very small number, and again, I don't see a lot of advertising in that case, but there are specific keywords that you can go after and then use those keywords in order to bring in your results within sponsored results. The standard marketplace ads or right-hand side ads as they're called. The next ad format, and this has grown largely, is because, like I said, 90% of smartphone users in the US access Facebook every day, which means that's a very captive audience. And if you look at the research that Google has done, you'll realize that whenever you're accessing your mobile, it's a more immersive experience than actually when you're on desktop. And that's largely because you cannot tab fly, which means you cannot just open another tab and just fly out. So it's more capturing, it's more immersive in terms of experience. This is a good way where you can access, because Facebook advertising is present on mobile ads as well. Then of course you've got premium ads, which comes onto the newsfeed or on the right hand side on the homepage. Newsfeed, of course, is now accessible, which means it's not called premium anymore. But then if you want to do a reach block where it's only your ad for the entire day, or if you want to do log out ads on Facebook, all of these fall under premium ads. I just want to show a quick video on what mobile ads are all about, because I think this is quite revolutionary.
When you see a mobile app install ad, it's right there in your newsfeed. It's embedded with all the other information that you're looking to find on Facebook. You'll see a really large image and a very clear call to action for install now, which is great, because then you know it's an app, it's available in the App Store or Google Play, and you can click that to go download it. It's a very seamless experience that's transparent to the user. Commandments is about fun. It's about delivering great experiences, great core gaming experiences, no matter where players are. The app space is extremely crowded right now. I mean, you have tens of millions of downloads occurring each and every day across the globe. The reach delivered by Facebook and the unique capability to deliver messages to users is something that has made our last couple launches a huge success.
Hotel Tonight is a company that makes mobile applications for same-day hotel bookings. We've approached the market to actually help the people not just trying to get a room, but fill those rooms. One of the core benefits of the mobile app install ads on Facebook are the kind of really in-depth targeting that we can do, being able to look at things like their leisure activities, maybe being able to target if they're an avid golfer, and being able to send them an ad that shows them, resorts that include golf courses. Can be a core benefit that we're not able to do on any other platform.
Poshmark is a free iPhone and iPad app that allows women to shop each other's closets all through the phone. Think of it as a consignment store, but mobile. If you want to sell something, all you have to do is create the listing. It's out there for other women to shop. As part of our strategy, we use lookalike audiences. Lookalike audiences are groups of individuals who have a similar affinity to those who have already downloaded the Poshmark app. So we're able to find them and target them in a way that, they're going to become engaged, they're going to become loyal as well.
The mobile app install ad unit has delivered a lifetime value up to 50% greater for certain segments. And we've had 3 titles in the top 25 grossing on the iOS as well as Android.
Our click-to install rates are almost 10 times what we've seen with a standard mobile banner network. The US and UK, we may see 20-30% better cost per installs than we would with some of our other platforms.
We have seen a 3 times better ROI when compared to other channels, and also have been able to decrease our costs of user acquisition on Facebook by 30%.
So these are users that over their lifetime are going to generate a lot more value for us. Ultimately, we're trying to drive a user that's going to use the app more than just once. So you're getting people that have raised their hand and said, I am this type of person, and that's really unique to Facebook.
I wanted to show this video largely because I realize there are a lot of startups in the room, especially those who are working on mobile platforms. If you want scale, if you want to be able to amplify the message and make sure that you reach out to the right set of users, I think this is a good format that you want to go onto and utilize. Then, of course, now brings in the serious social context within sponsored stories, which is anything that a user does around a content that the brand has created can then be amplified for the friends of the user, which is called friends of fans, and that's a good way to reach out, especially because there's context on the interaction with the post that the brand has created in itself. There are multiple ways. There's obviously the newsfeed reach, which is by far the most effective, but like I said, it could be any sponsored story, it could be on the right side, or it could be on the newsfeed. It could be interactions where people have checked into your place. It could be interactions, so here's the master list, which is check-in, app usage, page post like, or page post story, and the page like itself. But please go after only those that you want to measure from a conversion point of view. Everything on Facebook as it currently stands is measurable, including shares, which means you can now target advertising in order to make sure that you get more shares as opposed to likes or comments as well. So everything can be done, and I'm going to show you a wonderful tool that you can actually use in order to configure all of this. That's possible. Then of course, sponsored posts. How many of you know what the edge rank is? Anyone in the house? Edge rank? So if you realize you've got about 300 friends, you don't even get feeds from anything more than 50 friends. So about 250 friends are obviously missed out. You don't get their feeds on your news feed at all, and that's largely because you haven't interacted with them. Facebook knows who are your most favorite BFFs, and so continues to show more and more posts from your BFFs. The same thing happens with brands as well. A typical reach for a page post, even if you've got about 1 million fans, is nothing more than about 8%. Of course, you know, the average that Facebook would say is about 16%, but you know, typically you would see anything between 8 to 10% in terms of reach. That means that's the number of people who are actually looking at the page post. If you want to be able to amplify this and extend it to maybe about 40%, you could obviously use the boost post or sponsored post itself, which as soon as you post on the page, you can utilize. But please, please, please keep one thing in mind. On the very top, Facebook is a storytelling medium. If your story isn't strong, your ad will fail. I'm very clear about this. Do not try and be preachy. Do not try and be the standard brand advertising communication that you want to do. You have to be able to build context, and the best way to build context is to actually spin a story. Right? So even if it's an extra few words, please make sure that the story comes out quite strongly, visuals, text, or videos in case you want to use that kind of a medium. Targeting. Anybody who's used Facebook ads tool at the back end, which is the basic tool which you can access by going to facebook.com/ads, you'll realize that there's still sufficient amount of targeting that's allowed. But anybody who's been using the tool for a while right now would see that the entire funnel has switched, which means instead of selecting ads, Facebook will now allow you to select objectives. That means it'll ask you to first define what is the kind of objective that you want to achieve on Facebook as a platform. Is it more likes? Is it more engagements for the story? That means more, you know, comments, shares, likes for the story itself. Is it more conversion onto the website, which are off Facebook ads and so on and so forth, right? So that's something that Facebook needs to have clarity on so that they can start suggesting the right kind of units for you to be able to spend money on after that. Targeting is obviously very context sensitive as well, which means if you look at any of, I don't think you can see the post clearly, but it includes a series of alcohols, and so you'll start seeing relevant ads on the right hand side, which is beer ads and so on and so forth. So that is how targeting has also figured itself out, which means any kind of keyword access is also given at the back end, so use the right kind of hashtags when you're creating Facebook ads, and you could reach out to people who either like the page or have spoken about it. This is a topic that I usually dwell into a little bit in depth, but it's kind of a little bit out of scope here because we don't have the time, but Facebook has now allowed you to track every conversion on your website, which means off of Facebook or within Facebook itself. So you look at standard Facebook actions that you would do, which is play a video, look at a photograph, could be liking a page post story, could be commenting on it, could be sharing it. All of these are good actions that you want as a brand, because this literally points towards engagement. That means people are liking your content, they're engaging with it. You can actually measure all of this with conversion tracking within Facebook. The second thing is you can also measure actions which are being done on the website. So this can be optimized using a conversion pixel that you can drop onto the website for specific actions like lead generation form filled, registrations done, could be even checkout. That means people have come in, have gone ahead, shown interest in the product on your e-commerce site, and then when they've checked out is when it triggers off the conversion pixel, and then you can track that. And you can use OCPM, which is optimized cost per milli, which is cost per thousand, in order to see how you can optimize that advertising to get better results for the conversion itself. But when it comes to off Facebook ads, please make sure you're truthful. It's there in my tips section towards the end, but I think trying to what do I say, cheat the user in the beginning in the ad with something which is unrealistic, which is win something free and then asking him to go through multiple hoops, obviously is going to do really bad from a conversion metric point of view. This, for me, I think has become a huge game changer is custom audiences. So this is where it gets interesting. A lot of people, when you have a database of customers, you don't know how to reach out to them. Now, let's say you have a huge database of customers, could be even just something as small as 10,000. How do you think you would reach out to them? And when I say database, it would typically mean email or phone numbers. How do you think you would reach out to them? You'd probably send them an emailer. But anybody who's in the emailer department would know that the open rates are less than 7%. 7% is on the higher limit, which means people don't even get those emails. In the case of Facebook, if you have a database of customers specific to emails, phone numbers, or Facebook IDs, and in most cases you wouldn't have the Facebook IDs, it would be email and phone number, you could now give that entire list back to Facebook. It's hashed, of course, because Facebook doesn't really want them. They don't store it for you. It's coded and then sent to Facebook. Facebook dehashes it and then targets those specific users with advertising. Why is this interesting is because it's a good way for you to reach out to fans. Now, whenever you're in the entire game of growing your fan base and getting more likes, I think most established brands forget that your best fans are those who are already your customers, which means if you have their database, it's easy for you to make sure that you start targeting those kind of advertising to the customers itself. So this is custom audiences for you. Now, as you would have seen in the video, there's something called lookalike audiences, which is an extension of custom audiences. What Facebook does is once you've uploaded your entire data bank of customers, it first figures out it doesn't have to be like if you upload 10,000 email IDs, not all the 10,000 email IDs would be registered on Facebook, so it would obviously be a subset. Once it's found its users, it figures out demographics, where they're located, the likes, activities, interests, and then it extends the reach to lookalike audiences. That means people who are like your customers. There's nothing more like it, especially when it comes to commerce and also usage and conversion. I mean, you want to reach out to people who are more like your current customer. So clearly that's a good way to extend reach. And of course, custom audiences and lookalike targeting continues to do extremely well in terms of results, both in terms of click-through ratio as well as results for the clients. But I found something very, very interesting in terms of utilizing the Facebook Ads API and using custom audiences to do something called hyper-personalization. I believe that Facebook now has enough tools for you to be able to personalize every small aspect of the advertising itself. And let me show you why, because this is by far the most interesting case study that I've come across.
Facebook, the world's largest social platform. Over 60 million Indians are hooked onto it. No wonder that thousands of brands try to reach out to users on Facebook every day, like these. And consumers are turning a blind eye to these messages. Until users saw a personalized ad with their name and information. And for Tata Docomo, the role of social media changed forever. Welcome to the world's first hyper-personalization on social media. Tata Docomo prepaid user logs onto Facebook and is shown an ad customized to his current prepaid balance. As the user goes ahead and does a recharge, the ads change to acknowledge and thank him. As we detect high balance in the user's account, we show him relevant ads. For example, to subscribe to data packs. Or we check his interests and throw relevant ads, like subscribing to his favorite singers. But how did we achieve the impossible? We created a new ad server integrated with Facebook Ads API that seamlessly uses Facebook custom audiences. This high-quality server interacts in real time with the customer information system and the user's Facebook information to create and serve ads, targeting each user in near real time. Hyper-personalization has helped to win back more than 350,000 lapsed customers. Increased value-added service usage per user by 26% over base. Increased data pack subscriptions for 100 users to 46% overpace. Incremental revenue accrued overpace stands at over $2 million per month. Hyper-personalization, the future of social media marketing, is here.
So there you go. I mean, if you follow the case study, it's quite interesting because I've never seen anybody use custom audiences and the Facebook Ads API that creatively in order to create personalized experiences on the advertising front itself. So how can you do everything that I've discussed and ensure that you have immense control on your Facebook ads? How many of you have been using Facebook/ads and that entire tool that Facebook provides to you? If you have a Chrome browser, right, I would suggest that you access the following link. This gives you access to something called Power Editor. This is something that's opened up for practically any user that you want, right? Now what Power Editor does is it gives you immense control on the placement of your ad, along with conversion tracking pixels and all the bells and whistles other than premium advertising. That means other than logout and FBX ads, which I will talk about shortly, which is Facebook Exchange ads, you have access to everything. Right? Always use the Power Editor tool. It's a little bit steep on the learning curve, but it's definitely worth it when it comes to optimizing ads. Because when it comes to Facebook advertising, one thing you'll realize is that it's not, I mean, when you look at traditional marketing, what do? You create a print ad and you run it over and over again. Right? In the case of Facebook, I believe you need to change your ad unit every 3 days, and that's it. I think it's dead in 3 days. So clearly, if you need to be able to update it as quickly as it is, you need to be able to see when the CTRs, or the click-through ratios, which is conversion from impressions to clicks, actually dips. So when the CTR starts dipping is when you exit from that particular ad unit and then change the creative of the ad immediately. And that's a good way to do that very rapidly using the Power Editor tool. That's the link that you want to access. Please only use Chrome. It'll install a small little file onto your Chrome browser, and after that you're ready to use Power Editor. That by itself is extremely powerful. The next, in terms of ad placement and what's actually possible on Facebook as a platform, and the last one that I'll be discussing is obviously Facebook Exchange ads. These are retargeting ads, and if anybody's used to online advertising jargon and lingo, and if you've been doing that for a while, retargeting is when you access content on a website, but let's say you're trying to find out about a car, and you go to a website, right? And somewhere in between, without getting all of the details, you leave the website. That means you close the tab. Have you noticed that when you go back to other sites, could be Yahoo, could be any other site which is content driven, you'll suddenly start seeing ads which is specific only to that car brand? They're basically stalking you now. Right? So those are called retargeting ads because they're hoping that they could entice you with something more interesting so that you could come back and then complete the transaction. I've seen a lot of e-commerce startups, especially in the travel sector, utilize this over and over again because most people look for flights, say from between Singapore and Melbourne, and then you would leave because, you know, maybe you found the price expensive. So why not retarget them with a special discount only for that user so they could come back and then complete the transaction. These are retargeting ads. Facebook allows you to do this. Obviously, you'll have to work with a select set of retargeting partners who are DSPs in the case of Facebook because they are the ones who will be able to deliver it on the Facebook platform. So this is how it typically looks. This is a travel portal. You search for something which is from Oakland to Salt Lake City, and then you've gone, you've seen the costs, you've seen what are the suggestions, and then suddenly you leave. Right? But what would happen on Facebook is on the right-hand side, and now it's actually possible on the newsfeed as well, you will start seeing an ad for Fly Southwest Airlines, which is the brand that you saw previously. And when somebody clicks on it, you'd come back here in order to complete the transaction. Really simple. Right, so now let's really get down to what you want to do with your Facebook ads and how you want to make it better. Goal, 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 objective, objective, objective. Everything boils down to objective. Please do not even open Facebook/ads or open your Power Editor tool till you've taken a sheet of paper and listed the objectives that you want from your campaign. This is the first and the foremost step. If you're not clear about the objectives and if you're not clear about what are the kind of conversion metrics that you want to measure, please don't even open your browser. Absolute clarity, right? In terms of what you can do in terms of both value and size, that means value is the kind of defining users and audience that you can get, and in terms of sizes, what is on the X size. So you'll see, I'm just going to show you the corners, obviously. So if the value is low and the size is small, then you have geo-targeted traditional ads, which means you can target it to a very, very small set of people within a particular area. And on the other end, of course, you can reach out to everybody that is high value and high in size, which is fans of competitors, page post ads, and so on and so forth. This is a good way for you to balance the entire thing between size of the audience and the value of the audience itself. Right, so Facebook can essentially now help target customers whether you're prospecting or remarketing. That means if they're in the consideration set, as I showed you in the purchase cycle, Facebook can actually start having a conversation from there itself. These are a couple of the tools that I've already shown you. Of course, there's Facebook Exchange, which is interesting, Facebook Custom Audiences, Conversion Pixel, which is there for measurement, lookalike audiences, and partner categories, which is members who have membership cards and their purchase patterns in the US. It's not open for any other market, but that's something that you can watch out for. If I'm not mistaken, they're going to roll out with HK and Singapore if they do in the case of Asia. Yeah, so what really happens if you're not seeing strong performance on Facebook? And I think it would be one or multiple of these factors that you see on the screen, right? Most people would start off with no objectives. They would just say, just run an ad and let me see what's going to happen with it. I think everything when it comes to online digital / social media marketing has to be objective-led. And if you don't have a goal, then you have no business being there when it comes to advertising. Performance marketing on Facebook essentially is 4-part process. One is obviously it's got tremendous amounts of reach. You're talking about 1 billion odd users. You've got efficiency in terms of reach because it's very easy for you to tap into this huge audience. The visual canvas. Now, traditionally, if you looked at Facebook advertising, it was only right inside, and everybody complained on how small that thumbnail image was. It wasn't really a standard online banner ad that most people were used to. But now with the newsfeed, it's way stronger, both in terms of efficiency, in terms of effectiveness of reach, and at the same time size itself, because you've got the user's captured attention within the newsfeed. That is obviously the various amounts of targeting options that gives you. As it currently stands, I can clearly tell you from a user access point of view, Facebook has the most sophisticated targeting mechanisms that you will ever find. And lastly, of course, high performance. So we're talking about 1 billion plus users in terms of access. You've got a very, very rich canvas. It could be on the tablet, it could be on the desktop experience or on the mobile experience, all of this within the newsfeed. And of course, Facebook allows you to connect to the right people more efficiently. And lastly, we've got tremendous amounts of studies which show that there's tremendous amounts of superior performance when it comes to sponsored stories and page post ads which look at conversion. That means you're looking at a conversion metric. Right, so how do you drive conversion? These are the right Facebook ad formats that you want to use if you want to look at strong conversion. There's a photo page post ad, largely because it's large. There's a link page post ad so that people can click on the link and then move to an engagement which is off of Facebook. There's of course the mobile app install ad, and if you've been using Facebook mobile quite often, you'll realize that when you're scrolling up, you'll suddenly see an ad and the entire ad envelopes the entire screen. And lastly, of course, right inside domain ads, which are again ads which are targeted off Facebook. It could be directed back to your website, used largely by information sites and e-commerce portals. Now let's really talk about the newsfeed. So practically all engagement when it comes to Facebook starts from the newsfeed, and you would know this, right? Because you're spending more and more time on the newsfeed and not really stalking people. You're not really going into their profiles and bugging them and liking them and so on and so forth. What you're essentially doing is stalking them from the comfy home of the newsfeed itself. That means your homepage is where you're stalking people, but actually they want you to stalk them, so it's okay. Now, when you see that happen, I think newsfeed is where you as a brand need to be present. Of course, do realize that for per login, Facebook is going to show you that only once or at the very most twice. So this property is a little scarce. Obviously, it's going to cost more, but I can clearly tell you in terms of effectiveness, when it comes to ROI, it definitely is better. So this is standard. newsfeed spread, you will look at it, brand is very much in the center. When it comes to the mobile experience, it's full canvas, which is why the mobile advertising seems to be doing better over and over again. If you're producing mobile applications and you want to be able to publicize these, this is a good way to get started. Newsfeed continues to be the most engaging place for page posts, largely because of social context and also because you might have liked the brand itself. So as a user, if you've liked the brand, it makes more sense for them to show because there isn't natural reach that Facebook provides. And of course, like I said, there are 5 possible placements which are available when it comes to your advertising. This is your maximum list. It could be right-hand side plus desktop plus newsfeed mobile and so on and so forth. So these are the multiple options that you can utilize when it comes to advertising on Facebook. 22 times in terms of engagement compared to the right-hand side ads, and 7 times engagement as compared to premium ads, which means it's doing way better than homepage ads and better than logout ads. Please understand that I want you to concentrate on the center column. Always have a client objective. If you're doing this for a client, if you're an agency, please make sure there's an objective. And these are a couple of the objectives, right? It can go down to even in-store traffic. You need to be able to understand those objectives and then target the right kind of placements for your ad itself. If you start using the Power Editor tool, you will see that it's very easy for you to be able to create newsfeed ads. It's not difficult at all. So in terms, you just select placements. I mean, after you selected your page post, select placements, and then select where you want this delivered. This is not default, which means you want to be able to select this if you want maximum reach for your advertising. So let's just quickly review before I get into split testing and what you could do with optimization. So whenever you look at advertising, the first thing you would select is what is the kind of placement that you want to have. This is extremely important. The second thing is what is the kind of ad format, right? Is it a photo page post story? Is it a page like story? And so on and so forth. Third is what is the kind of targeting? And I think when it comes to Facebook, because you have all of these targeting features, like I said, it's by far the most sophisticated when it comes to user targeting. Utilize those features wisely. You can get down to even understanding who are expectant mothers, people who have just recently got married, people who are engaged, and if that's the kind of relationship, that's the kind of status that you want to go after as a brand, then it's a good way to do that. Please make sure that you master these because the targeting options, as far as I'm concerned, are unlimited, and you can get really creative with them. And lastly, obviously, you have conversion pixels, in which case you can optimize for the right kind of conversion that you want to see. And by far the most important is measure, measure, measure. So at one end of your sheet should be goals, 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 or objectives, objectives, objectives. And towards the end of the sheet, it should be measure, measure, measure. If you have this in place, then everything else in between should figure itself out. So split testing and how you want to use Facebook ads, especially when it comes to right-hand side or any other kind of Facebook advertising that you actually want to use. First, split your target audience into multiple groups. This is the first thing that you would do. That means there is nothing like a homogeneous, demographic. There is nothing like male, female between 18 to 50. I'm sorry, that doesn't exist, right? It exists as a population, but it doesn't exist as content targeting, right? So please make sure you split your audience first. Break them into groups, have different messages for different groups, and then have multiple ads for each one of these groups and see which one of those ads are doing better. This is essentially the basics of split testing, but that's not all. You want to see between 2 ads which one's doing better. Always maintain a base ad that you start as a campaign, and then start innovating with trying out new visuals, new text, and new headlines. These are the 3 things that you can essentially play with, right? And then see which ones start to do better. And if they do better, switch to that particular campaign. Really simple. So things that you want to keep in mind is have a test and control it. Change just one part at a time. In the sense that if you want to change just the visual, change just the visual. Otherwise, you wouldn't know which is affecting the results. If you change all the 3, you wouldn't know which one to pinpoint to. And you'll slowly get to become an expert at it as you grow. 3, of course, run the test for just 2 or 3 days. I'd mentioned this before. 3 days is the apt length for any advertising that you want to run on Facebook. It's not like you create an ad campaign in an ad unit and you want to run this for a month. It's going to fail. You need to be at it. You need to be able to change this at least twice a week. So if you're very lazy, 3 can become 3.5 days, but definitely not more than that. And lastly, use separate campaigns for testing. I mean, this is largely from the tool point of view. When you start testing, create newer campaigns. It's easier for you to get results immediately. Always build a test plan. That means you know exactly what to expect. You know what are the changes that you made. Was it text? Was it image? And so on and so forth. And finally, my last section of the discussion, and considering we are definitely running short on time, I'm going to quickly take you through certain optimization tips. Like I said, I'm trying to compress something which is 4 hours into 45 minutes. So the first very quick tip is ask a question in the ad. This is interesting because what do you do when you actually have a social experience? When you walk into a group, most exchanges of conversation are more question relevant, right? So always ask a question in the ad. That tends to bring in more engagement. Second, always write a short ad copy. You don't want to be long because that tends to tune people off. When it comes to ad copy, short is simple, short is better. Use a close-up face in your image. Now, please, please, please remember this. Whenever you're advertising, if you have people that you want to show, please don't show full length because you cannot see anything. Don't show only eyes because that means nothing, right? You need to be able to show close-ups of faces. That's what you would connect with. I mean, have you ever heard of the story which is called "We Saw a Face on Mars"? So one of the Mars rovers actually went in, one of those small little things which fly across the planet and click photographs. People suddenly realized that one of the photographs looks like they have a face on Mars. Now here's the deal, there was no face on Mars, right? It's just that we are tuned to see faces more often, which is why you love to see Jesus on bread and all of that. That's because we're tuned to see faces, right? Which is why use faces within that small little ad unit. These are some of the little bit tips and techniques that people tend to use within the industry. Cats and images, you know how cats are very popular. You go and see cat videos. I have no idea why dogs are not a part of the subset. Nobody's done research to find out that. If it does come out, I'll share it with you on mail. But as far as I'm concerned, cats do extremely well. So try to use cats and images. There's something called day parting, and I'll explain that a little later because it's there in one of the subsequent slides. Audience segmenting, keep the copy short, faces and images, high contrast. Now this is something that you want to do. It's really depth if you were to use blue and white, because that's the colors of Facebook. Please don't do that. Don't use blue and white because you would get hidden, right? You want to be able to use high contrast in your images itself. Strong call to action. Don't get Hitlerish. Don't become Hitler. Don't say, come click us right now. No, that's not going to work. You need to be a little soft, have the story process, precise targeting that always works, and multivariate testing, which is split testing that I've shown you already. Personalize the image. Now this is where it gets interesting. I told you to segment the audiences in the beginning, at least when it comes to demographics. If you're targeting this to a 45-year-old woman, please don't show a punk who's 19. Like, that's not going to work, right? So once you've done that, make sure that the content, especially the image itself, is more personalized to the audience that you're addressing. Capitalize a couple of words. I think Google has a few guideline restrictions around these, but Facebook is letting it slip for now. So you could capitalize a couple of words and see the effect, because you know what happens, right? Capital words means shouting. So you can always shout free and see in case the eye moves in that direction or somebody engages. By the way, all of this is relevant only if you have a powerful story, yeah? Only if there's a real good content that people want to engage with. These are just eye-grabbing things, right? But if you don't have a powerful story, you will definitely grab their eye, and they will scoot back to the news feed as quickly as they saw your ad. This is interesting. You can actually do competition targeting. So this is an ad which show your Marriott rewards card and receive 50% off on your next stay at Hilton. That means you can use competitive words or competition brand names and competition words and then target them on Facebook. It gets really interesting. And you start seeing tremendous amounts of results here, because some people think it's fun and some people say, wow, I hate the Marriott. I love to go to the Hilton with that card of mine. Of course, use numbers and unusual characters. These are standard. Anybody who's been running Google ads would know this. It's quite obvious because it's not just a stream of words, it's characters which are special, so you should be able to utilize them. Try and be a little bit more accurate. 15% off means nothing. Imagine just walking down a mall and then you see all of the sale, 50%, 40%, you know how much of a spam that is, right? But then suddenly if you see something which says 7.68% off, you're bound to stand there and wonder why the hell that happened. You can always stimulate emotion. That means, quote unquote, have real conversation context when it comes to advertising itself. So, like I said, you folks are an awesome audience. Now, click like. Send users to your Facebook page. Now, do understand that users hate leaving Facebook, right? Think about it from your point of view. If you click on an ad and you're sent to a website outside of Facebook where you're just interested in watching that cat video that you just saw again, you're going to close that new tab, right? So if you want to build engagement so that users come back within Facebook itself. So this is something that we do extremely well, which is we build engagements on the page. You want to be able to take them under a Facebook page tab and then build engagement there. It could be something as simple as a lead generation form. We've seen results from page tabs and fill-ups on the lead generation form to be better than if you actually take them outside of Facebook. The other thing you need to be careful, and I see this a lot of times and I have no idea why. Can you believe this? This is actually a promoted post story. It's a video, but before the video, there's an option for another ad, right? Which is why there's the small little option which says skip ad. Please don't do this. Don't be a cheapo, just use Vimeo or something. But YouTube sometimes can be a little tricky, especially when it comes to advertising. Follow through on the promise on the landing page. Do not show very sexy women and then taking them to a very, very boring site where the sexy women imagery is not continued. Please make sure that there's context. This is very, very important. It cannot be starkly different from the ad that somebody just engaged with. Now, day parting is essentially simple. There's some ads which work better. Now, let's take restaurants, for instance, right? You want to be able to run these ads only between 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and not beyond that. Start parting your days based on where you're going to get maximum conversion. This will always get you better results. Facebook tools don't sometimes allow you to do that, but then you can use third-party tools in order to run day parting itself. And finally, obviously, this is a given. Target your fans. You'll get better CTRs. It's really simple. And one of the last few tips that I want to leave you with is a very, very interesting. Now, how many of you have seen standard page posts, right? You've seen what? Images, you've seen videos. At the very most, you would have seen is like a SoundCloud audio feed, and you would have seen links and just pure text, correct? As a matter of fact, you can go beyond that. You can actually create a flash inbuilt interaction within the page post story itself. That means you can create a page story or a page post with an interactive flash element, which is then immersive within itself. I'm going to show you one of those examples. We do this extremely well for a lot of brands, especially because it's very interactive. It's a lot of fun. It's not boring. It's not just, oh, look at the image, play the video. It's actually you're interacting with the feed itself. So here we go.
My name is Thomas, and I'm the previous co-founder of Photo, an online tool that helps businesses custom design educational page tabs.
So if you see this right here, this is, can you see the border? It doesn't look like a standard video play, right? This is actually just a Flash post story made on like Adobe Flash, correct? Which you can now interact with. And when you click on it, obviously it goes in and gives you a very clear landing page and you can start interacting with it. Right, you guys have been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much. I'm Preetham, Venkky. That was the end of the session. If you have any questions and answers, I'd be able to answer the same for you. Thank you once again for the opportunity.